What's good, YouTube? This video is going to be about 6 rules to arguing whether you're dating or in a relationship that keep your connection healthy. I meet a lot of people with very poor communication skills. They ruin relationships and potential relationships by arguing in very destructive ways when an issue arises. Oftentimes, the argument becomes bigger than the issue because of it. You may recognize this quote from a recent quote of the day video I've done, which is, "You are the master of all your unspoken words and a slave to those which should have remained unsaid." This will be good for many of you to remember because you don't watch your tongues. Also, if that quote resonates with you, buy the t-shirt at the link below. I'm reminded of that because of how people destroy their relationships by not being careful about what they say to a person, forgetting how it may affect them long term, doing permanent damage in temporary situations. So jumping right into it, rule number 1 for arguing in a healthy way is attack the issue and not the person. Attack the issue and not the person. Keep things solution-based. Remember, you can't solve a person, but you can solve an issue. The behavior is what you're trying to get rid of, not the person. So don't attack or destroy the person. Attack and destroy the behavior. Make the behavior the highlight. Make the behavior the focus. That way you can find a solution to it, because behavior can be altered, behavior can be changed, but a person feels very connected to their identity. And if you draw a straight line from their identity to their behavior, it dehumanizes them and they feel less valued. Even if you're right about what you're upset at or what you're mad at, whatever the issue might be, you cannot make that their identity because there's no other way to take that but personal. Keep your argument solution-based by focusing on the issue and focusing on solutions to the behavior, altering the behavior, making sure to make a distinguishment between that person and your feelings about that person versus your feelings about their patterns and habits and practices. Don't get so upset that you sloppily express that they're the problem instead of their behavior, which can be changed or altered. You may build some inadequacy in them or a sense of resentment if you're not careful about how you present those ideas. So keep your argument solution-centered by focusing on the issue and not the person. Speak to the cause and effect of this not being solved and work on the solution together. Solution-based arguing. Moving on. The second rule for arguing in a healthy way is always keep facts over feelings. We often forget that the facts aren't always glued together with our feelings. They don't always represent each other well. They're not always in agreement with each other. We also forget that our feelings are not the facts. Again, our feelings about the thing, how it affects us, how we feel about it, are not the facts. Therefore, your feelings alone cannot be your argument. In solution-based arguing, it has to be more about finding an answer to a riddle that's presented itself in your relationship, not about expressing your feelings in ways that destroy the relationship. In solution-based arguing, adjusting the behavior is the focus, not emotionally responding to it. You always want to minimize your emotions and maximize your logic in these situations. Yes, you're allowed to feel. Yes, your feelings are important. Yes, you should express the effect of that behavior on you and your feelings about it. But don't let your feelings decide how you solve that issue. Our negative feelings by themselves can't decide whether or not a person is being mean to us or intends to hurt us or wants to do damage to us or desires something different than we desire. Sometimes when you feel disconnected to a person, your emotions push you to a place where you want to further that disconnection because you're upset, you're angry, you're hurt. But that doesn't mean your feelings reflect that person's intent to hurt, to harm. Learn to observe your feelings. Acknowledge them for yourself. Acknowledge that you have them to your significant others. But don't let them decide the tones and the steps and the levels of the conversation. You have to keep your emotions under control if you want solution-based arguments that increase your connection and reattach that understanding that you have with your partner. The whole point is to always get back to seeing eye to eye, to understanding each other, to being one with each other. We don't always relate to each other's emotions because we're on different sides of the argument. But we can always relate to the logic and the want and the need and the desire to be more connected to each other. So use that as the guiding light. The need and the want and the desire to be more connected, to get back to a place of agreement, being eye to eye, understanding each other, feeling that connection, being one. You can be furious with a person, and it doesn't necessarily reflect accurately what they want for you or the relationship. So don't let that fury decide how you handle them. Deal in your logic as best as you can. It'll save you a lot of trouble and a lot of heartache. Moving on, the third rule for healthy arguing is only say what you mean, nothing else. Stop saying shit you have to take back later when everything is cool. Nothing should fall from your lips when you're arguing with your significant other that you couldn't repeat in times of peace. If you're watching this channel, it likely means you're over 6 years old, so watch your mouth. Kids say things, kids get out of control, kids don't know how to manage themselves and their anger. Adults should know how to do that. Stop saying that you don't have control, stop saying that you just lost it. Adults can't just lose it, we have too much to lose. People try to tell me all the time they just can't control their mouths. That's a lie. You control yourselves at that job? Oh yes, for a paycheck. All of a sudden, you know how to conflict manage without going off or having a moment. All of a sudden, for that paycheck, you know how to shut the hell up when you're angry and gather yourself. To bite your tongue. You know how to find a place and space to vent without losing your damn job. So why can't you do this in your relationship? It's because you don't want to. Stop doing permanent damage in temporary situations by not controlling what comes out of your mouth. Only say things that you can repeat in times of peace and only say what you mean. Saying crazy things just because you're upset is always a red flag and an indicator that you're not ready for the type of relationship that you seek. You want healthy love, but you're not willing to offer healthy love because that becomes too big a sacrifice to offer for your convenience when you're angry. Watch your mouth. It's better to say nothing than to say the wrong thing. Again, if you need to remind yourself, buy the t-shirt at the link below. But you are the master of all your unspoken words and a slave to those which should have remained unsaid. You will pay for saying the wrong things to people. Most of the time, that payment is emotional. It comes in the form of trauma, loneliness, regret, heartbreak, resentment. It's not worth it. If you know you get too upset to accurately represent what you want and what you desire for your relationship, give yourself space to think it through. Give yourself space to communicate. If you cannot verbalize when you're too upset, start writing your feelings down. It would be better to pass notes to your partner or write letters to your partner to express your anger and your issues than to say things that destroy the relationship, build insecurity and resentment in them, and cause damage that can't be repaired with an apology. Moving on. Rule number 4. Fight fair even if it means you will lose. No emotional blackmail, ladies. A lot of times women start to cry and they have these breakdowns that really tear a guy's heart out. Like, guys don't want to feel like they're destroying you. And some of you have so many issues controlling your emotions that it just looks like abuse when a guy disagrees with you. You emotionally blackmail him. He doesn't want to be the reason you cry or you're sad or you're depressed. You put all this pressure on him to be your stability. Or if you don't, if this issue isn't solved, look at me, I'm sad. You're the reason I'm sad. You're the reason I'm depressed. If you don't do it, you don't love me. Like all of these different ideas and extremes that if a person is in disagreement with you, that they can't love you and that they don't care about you, and you guilt them into just going your way and taking your side and compromising in ways that are forced. Emotional blackmail is ugly and wicked, to be quite honest, and I can't stand it. Guys do it too, but women have mastered the art of emotional blackmail. Often a person might say, well, you don't love me because you don't do this one thing I want you to do, or this particular thing I've asked you to do. If we're being honest, that type of talk always tasks the person's partners to try to prove their love through obedience, slaveship, and it also disempowers them to resist even when things aren't good for them in the relationship. Telling a person they don't love you because they don't behave a certain way or they don't do a thing that you like them to do, or breaking down and crying because you know that's the way to end an argument is just kind of weak. And it builds resentment anyway. Just because you won an argument doesn't mean you're winning in your relationship. And it doesn't mean that you didn't just do damage that you'll ultimately pay for later. Focus less on winning the argument and focus more on, again, being solution-based, solving the issue at hand. Because just like Rosie Perez said, sometimes when you lose, you really win. And sometimes when you win, you really lose. If you use emotional blackmail to win a conflict or an argument in your relationship, I can guarantee you that in time, you've really lost that relationship. Moving on, the 5th rule for healthy arguing in your relationship is no charged words or accusations. Accusatory statements always start with phrases like you always or you never or every time, right? People speak in absolutes when they're using charged words because they're trying to make the point that they're always being victimized by something or something is never being done for them. But those absolutes are almost never true. Statements that are absolute are oftentimes inaccurate and very dismissive of the effort that someone has offered you, no matter how minuscule it might have been. You need to acknowledge what people do to get them to do more. If you skip over what a person does, if you don't accept the things that they are doing as adequate enough or as a start even, if you don't acknowledge those things, then they're less likely to do more because you said you never do it. More often than not, they become resistant to do even the little bit that they were doing before you said that. Never dismiss someone's efforts if those efforts are present, even if they're in small quantities. Still don't dismiss them. And don't speak in absolutes. Few things are absolute. You can make your point without accusing a person of never being good enough, of never being adequate. If you bring that language into your arguments, it's likely that you'll have communication issues. Oftentimes when couples lose the ability to talk through issues, it's because they are speaking in absolutes to each other, or one party is always speaking in absolutes to another. Never say the word never in your relationship. Look for instances and areas and moments in your relationship where your partner did do those things and acknowledge them. You're more likely to get that behavior replicated if you acknowledge what they've already done, no matter how minuscule it is. That's how you get a person to do more, is by maximizing and magnifying what they've already done for you. Acknowledge that and say, I want more of this, which you did that day. Now, don't say, you've never done this, you've never done that, you always do this against me. That's the perfect way to build resentment in your relationship. Also, you should consider using I language because it represents your feelings honestly and more sincerely without making absolute statements and assumptions, without accusing a person. For example, you never listen to me is an accusation with a charge word attached to it. It immediately shuts off the connection to its recipient. On the contrary, there are times where I don't feel heard by you makes no accusation at all and doesn't deal in absolutes. It's a better option and it's just as genuine as the first statement. In this statement, the ears of the recipient stay open and empathetic. That's because there were no absolutes, there was no charge words, there were no accusations. Without the charge words and the absolutes and the accusations, empathy is easier to receive and an understanding is easier to be reached. So think about ways you can start using I language when you're dealing with issues instead of you language and instead of charge words. Google I language and Google charge words if you need more on that. Moving on. The sixth rule for arguing is commit to arguing in healthier ways together. If you're watching this video with your partner, if you're watching videos like this, if you're studying these different things that I'm speaking about in these videos, doing your Googles, commit to working on these things together. Commit to bringing healthier habits and practices and patterns into your arguments as a couple. You have to both be on a journey to get the most out of this relationship for yourselves, but also for each other. So commit to that process, as uncomfortable as it might be, especially when you're angry or you're upset. Both of you have to be on a journey to stay connected and communicate in healthy ways, or all of this is pointless. One person can't be a healthy communicator and the other one be a toxic communicator, and you still have a successful relationship. You both have to care about that connection and about that understanding. If you get better at arguing and they continue as always, then you'll begin to resent them for their lack of effort, as well as all of the things that you apparently don't agree on. So commit as a team to arguing in healthier ways that don't destroy the relationship and that increase the connection and understanding and empathy that you have for each other. I think I've said enough. That's all I got for now. Definitely check out my t-shirts at the link below if you're interested. Follow me at KidFig24 on Instagram. I'll get with y'all later.